Welcome to Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerantz. We thank you so much for joining us again. Our guest is Dana Gluckstein. She has been photographing Indigenous peoples for 30 years. And in early November, the fruits of her labor will be shown in this book. It's called Dignity. This is a stunning tomb of photographs of Indigenous peoples. Dana, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Why is someone who lives in West Los Angeles so committed to Indigenous peoples?
Brad, I have been doing this work, as you said, for 30 years. I am passionate about working with Indigenous peoples because I think that they have a message for all of us. And I am very interested in making sure that our world survives and that we heal much of what is wrong in the world.
What is that message?
That message is so beautifully expressed in the foreword of the Dignity book by Nobel laureate Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He says that Indigenous peoples have a gift to give to us that we so desperately need. And that gift is that we are meant for harmony, we are meant for interdependence. If we are to survive, if we are to prosper, then we really need to hear those teachings.
The pictures are so beautiful. I want to talk about three of them, if I may, and how they touched you and how they will touch the readers of this book. Let's start with Tribal Man in Transition. I mean, just the title, those 4 words tell us everything.
Tribal Man in Transition was taken in one of my early journeys to Kenya, and he is a perfect example of what has happened to so many Indigenous peoples, that they have had to move from their ancestral lands and they find themselves caught in limbo, not able to practice their ancient traditions, not able to fit into the modern world. He still has his markings, his tribal markings, and yet he wears a torn t-shirt. As the curator from the Santa Barbara Museum said, he has the look of a hero. He is an iconic figure for Indigenous people.
A defeated hero or a hero that's still triumphant?
A hero that is still triumphant, and that is important to know, that so many Indigenous peoples are really having a renaissance around the world. One country, excuse me, not country, but it feels like a country, it's part of America, is Hawaii. And that
talk to us about Hawaiian chanter with a single tear.
Exactly. Hawaiian chanter is such a meaningful image to me because her tear represents the sorrow of the Hawaiian people, a kingdom that was stolen by the United States and is now having its own renaissance.
What about Aboriginal artists, which that picture to me is, wow, in a lot of ways it's just stirring because the artist has her hands on her head.
Yes, Aboriginal artist was taken in the Iroquois Indian Reservation at a gathering of elders. That is a beautiful artist named Bondoc Marika, and again, that image to me celebrates her wisdom and also the sorrow of a people whose lives were taken from them in Australia.
Dana, in so many ways, I think Americans are so conflicted by the notion of Indigenous peoples. We are Europeans. And the Europeans, our forefathers, decimated our Indigenous peoples and Native Americans. Talk to us about that conflict we feel.
Yes, that conflict is also described in the introduction of the book by our revered elder, Iroquois chief Oren Lyons. And he talks about what happened during the medieval era and the Roman Catholic Church and the idea of the doctrine of discovery, that all lands that the church discovered would be owned by European countries, even if there were already people living there. So for example, the Native Americans were treated like animals. They were allowed to live on the land but roam on the land.
Dan, I want to thank you so much for joining us. The book is called Dignity. It is a 30-year journey depicting Indigenous peoples throughout the world. I'm Brad Pomerantz. Back to HLN.
You order a comedy. When it arrives, you're in the mood for a drama. With Charter on Demand, you can get the movie you're in the mood for at the press of a button.